I used to think I'd built a life most men would envy. A self-made business, a beautiful home in the hills, 2 amazing kids, and a wife whose laugh used to make people stop talking just to hear it echo a little longer. But the night everything fell apart, the house was silent. Too silent. Vanessa had left that morning for what she called a girls' trip. Spa weekend. Yoga retreat. Some nonsense she never used to care about until recently. I stayed back with our kids, Noah, 9, and Lily, 6, promising pizza and a movie night. It was almost bedtime when Noah came downstairs holding something behind his back. He looked pale. I could see tears fighting their way out, and he was shaking. "Daddy," he whispered, "they're coming tonight." I froze. "What? Who's coming?" He didn't answer. He just handed me Vanessa's old phone, a backup she used for travel. I hadn't seen it in months. Thought it was lost or dead. But the screen was on, and messages were still coming in. I scrolled through dozens of texts between Vanessa and someone saved as Walsh, as in D.A. Benjamin Walsh, the same man I'd once donated a campaign check to and later fired my lawyer over because he kept showing up in meetings uninvited. They weren't just talking about me, they were orchestrating something. Trip is greenlit. He won't suspect anything. Tonight's our window. We neutralize before the audit drops. He sleeps heavy. Kids will be with him. Get in and out. There were codes, attachments, even floor plan sketches of our house, my office, the gun safe, the server closet where I kept all my files. I stood there, reading the words over and over, as if that would make them change. But they didn't. They only got worse. One thread talked about offshoring assets, locking down legal proxies, and a custody emergency petition scheduled for tomorrow morning. I looked at Noah. "How did you get this?" "She left it charging in her closet," he said. "It buzzed a lot. I thought it was your phone. He didn't have to explain. He'd saved our lives. I ran. There was no time for explanations or packing neatly. I grabbed my go bag, the one Vanessa always said made me paranoid. I threw clothes into a duffel, tucked the kids into the back seat of my Range Rover, and loaded my SIG sour into the glove box. By the time we were on the road, I saw unfamiliar headlights turning slowly down our private drive. We didn't go to my usual safe house or any hotel chain that required ID. I made a split-second call to an old friend, Miguel, a fixer who used to work private security for my company. He owed me favors. Big ones. Within the hour, I had a location, a cabin in the Appalachians, off-grid but fully stocked. As we drove through the night, I kept watching the rearview mirror. Every flash of light felt like a tale. Every turn, a trap. The kids slept. I didn't. Somewhere around 3 a.m., with the gravel of the mountain road crunching under our tires, it hit me. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't an affair. Vanessa hadn't fallen out of love. She wanted me removed. And whatever plan she and Walsh had set in motion, it was meant to be silent, surgical, and permanent. But I wasn't dead. I was wide awake. And I was going to burn the whole damn thing down before I let them touch my children. The cabin sat nestled in a hollow, surrounded by trees thick enough to muffle a scream. It looked rustic from the outside, the kind of place a retired surgeon might keep stocked with cigars and fishing poles. But inside, it was a fortress, double-bolted doors, a panic room in the basement, Faraday mesh in the walls. Miguel didn't disappoint. The kids were still asleep when we arrived. I carried Lily inside, her head on my shoulder, her hair damp with sweat. Noah followed close behind, clutching the stuffed rabbit he hadn't let go of since he was 3. Miguel showed up a few hours later with Pike, a wiry, silent ex-NSA type who moved like a ghost and smelled faintly of soldering iron and espresso. They didn't ask many questions. I think Miguel knew the look on my face meant something biblical was coming. I dumped Vanessa's old phone on the table and said, "Tell me how bad it is." By the time Pike finished pulling encrypted backups from the phone and my home server, the room felt like it had been doused in acid. Vanessa had been working with Walsh for over a year. She'd slowly sabotaged my company from within, staging fake audits, rerouting client deals, even leaking false harassment allegations to sink my credibility with the board. Miguel pulled bank records tracing shell accounts registered in Barbados and Montenegro, all linked back to PACs connected to Senator James Pearson, Vanessa's father. Pearson had always looked at me like I was a janitor who'd won the lottery. Now I understood why. I wasn't just a threat to his image. I was leverage. My downfall would clean up years of financial missteps and open a new portfolio of international assets under his control. What about the kids? I asked. Pike didn't flinch. They want full custody. Framed emergency. You disappear, you're declared unfit. Walsh signs it. Judge signs it. Done. I felt something tighten in my chest. It wasn't fear. It was something more dangerous. Resolve. Miguel placed a manila folder on the table. Inside were stills from a private investigator's report. Vanessa meeting Walsh at a courthouse parking garage. Vanessa entering a luxury condo under a false name. Vanessa forging a signature on a medical proxy form for Lily's pediatrician. It was all there. Not just betrayal, premeditated destruction. They've been building this for months, Miguel said. Pearson's fingerprints are all over it. This wasn't a girl's trip. It was cover for the final play. I leaned back, eyes burning. My kids were watching cartoons in the next room, laughing, completely unaware that their mother, their grandfather, and the district attorney were conspiring to erase their father from the picture, maybe from the planet. I stood up and made my first real decision. We weren't hiding anymore. We were fighting back. I called my attorney, had him start filing emergency custody paperwork in another jurisdiction. I moved assets into protected trusts under the kids' names. Pike scrubbed our digital footprint, removing any sign of where we'd gone. Miguel sent drones to fly false signals around my other properties. Meanwhile, I started compiling every thread of evidence, texts, images, audio, financial records, into an encrypted dossier. We named the project Widowmaker. It wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. And it was time to reclaim the narrative. I looked at Miguel. I want every person who touched this exposed. He nodded. Then you're going to need friends in high places. I stared at Vanessa's smiling face in an old family photo still stuck to my wallet. The way she used to look at me. I couldn't tell anymore if that was real, or if it ever was. By sunrise the next day, I was already on a secure call with a judge in Utah, a friend of my late uncle's who owed him favors I'd never intended to cash in. He agreed to look at the evidence and fast-track an emergency custody petition. I sent everything, the messages, the floor plans, the financial records. If this failed, I was out of legal place. 3 hours later, I had temporary sole custody of Noah and Lily. Next came divorce proceedings. My attorney, a shark named Lydia Fry, filed in a state where marital misconduct still carried real weight. We cited fraud, endangerment, and criminal conspiracy. She was like a sniper in heels, efficient, ruthless, and impossible to rattle. But while we moved quietly through the courts, Vanessa and Walsh went loud. The first sign came from a news alert: Russell Bennett under investigation for embezzlement and domestic abuse. My face was everywhere, on tabloids, podcasts, even those trashy morning panels that pretend to care about the children. Photos of me from a drunken birthday party in 2019. Misquoted emails. Alleged anonymous sources. It was a full-blown media war, and they weren't playing fair. Then the FBI called. Agent Marisol Delgado introduced herself with clipped professionalism. Mr. Bennett, this is a courtesy. A federal investigation has been opened into your financial activities and potential interstate fraud. I'm giving you one chance to tell me why I shouldn't issue a warrant. I almost hung up, but then something in her voice changed. I think you're being set up, she said quietly. That's when I knew the game had levels I hadn't seen yet. Delgado and I met in a parking garage 2 nights later. I handed her a red flash drive, not marked, not traceable, and told her everything. About Walsh. About Pearson. About the plot to take my children. I even handed over a voice recording Miguel had captured. Pearson berating Walsh over the phone, saying he was sick of cleaning up Vanessa's messes. Delgado didn't say much, but she took the drive. And when she walked away, I saw her make a call. We were in. But the smear campaign only got uglier. One morning, I opened my inbox to find screenshots of Lily's birth certificate, altered, with "Father Unknown" stamped across it. Below was a photo of Vanessa, years ago, pregnant, and standing beside a man who definitely wasn't me. Miguel said nothing. Just waited. I wanted to scream. Break something. Ask why she'd ever done this. But all I could do was sit there while my stomach folded into itself and wonder if the little girl who called me Daddy was biologically mine. I looked into the other room and saw her playing with blocks. I made my decision. I don't care, I whispered. She's mine. No matter what. That night, I signed a directive with Lydia. We proceed with full custody filings and protections for both kids, no DNA test required. It wasn't about blood anymore. It was about love. About protection. about staying alive. The next morning, I got a call from Pike. We found something. He pulled up footage from a hidden camera placed inside a luxury downtown loft. Walsh and Vanessa. Intimate. Laughing. Talking about cleaning the Bennett mess and prepping Pearson's next donor sweep. They were arrogant. Loose. Like they'd already won. But that's the thing about people who think they've won. They stop watching their backs. I was done playing defense. It was time to bring the whole rotten empire down. We met Thomas Pearson at a truck stop just past midnight. He wore a hoodie pulled low and sunglasses, even in the dark. The heir to the Pearson dynasty looked like a fugitive. Miguel had arranged the meeting, said Thomas reached out through a burner, panicked and ready to flip. He slumped into the booth across from me, face pale and trembling. A thick bandage wrapped around his shoulder, the blood already starting to seep through. I don't have much time, he muttered. They know I talked to someone. I think they were trying to scare me, but they missed. I didn't ask who they were. We both knew. Thomas Pearson was supposed to be untouchable, Senator Pearson's golden son, Ivy League darling, future mayor. But he looked like hell, and the shaking in his hands wasn't from caffeine. You want protection? I asked. No, he said, voice cracking. I want to confess. He told me everything. How Walsh and Pearson had built a web of political and financial leverage, laundering bribes through nonprofits, buying judges, planting fake intel through media allies. How Vanessa had been their pawn, then their partner. And how, 10 years ago, during a winter fundraiser in Aspen, she and Thomas had crossed a line. He looked at me then, eyes wet. Lily, she's mine. I didn't react. Couldn't. My heart felt like it had left my chest and was sitting between us on the table, bleeding out beside his shoulder. I didn't know for years, he whispered. She told me 2 months ago. Said it would ruin everything if it got out. But she doesn't care about that little girl, man. She's just leverage to her. He pulled a small drive from his pocket and slid it across the table. It's all there. Proof. Financials. Conversations. Dad's offshore accounts. Everything. Miguel grabbed it and scanned it with a mobile rig under the table. Green light. Verified. I looked at Thomas. Why now? He winced, pulling his jacket tighter. Because I couldn't let her grow up thinking that woman loved her. That broke me. We got him a safe house. Pike had a clinic contact clean his wound. But within 12 hours, the house was torched. Thomas didn't make it out. The authorities called it electrical failure. But I knew better. Miguel called me after and said, we go now. We relocated again, this time under federal protection. Delgado helped arrange a transport through back channels. The kids didn't ask questions. They just held my hands tighter. Before we left the last cabin, I sat Lily down and looked her in the eyes. Sweetheart, I said gently, you know I'm your dad, right? She looked confused. Then she smiled. Of course you are. I held her so tight I think I hurt her a little. But she didn't complain. Later that night, I uploaded Thomas's drive to the cloud and set a timed release. If anything happened to me, everything would go public. The accounts, the blackmail, the testimonies. We called the dead man file, Echelon. As we crossed into federal jurisdiction, I felt something shift in me. No more guessing. No more fear. I had just buried the only man who tried to tell the truth. I wouldn't let his death be for nothing. I was going to destroy them. All of them. They didn't see it coming. Not when Walsh stepped on stage at a packed political fundraiser, flanked by Senator Pearson and a smiling Vanessa. Not when the flashbulbs popped and the champagne flowed. And not when his campaign manager counted down to the live stream's opening remarks. But I did. Because 22 seconds after he tapped the mic, every screen in that ballroom went black, and then turned on again. This time, with my voice. Good evening, District Attorney Walsh. Since you enjoy surveillance, I figured I'd return the favor. What followed wasn't a speech. It was a reckoning. Every guest watched in paralyzed horror as clips played across the ballroom. Walsh and Vanessa in bed, plotting a clean exit for me. Pearson screaming on the phone, we do not leave trails, Benjamin. A confession from Thomas, dated 2 days before his death, naming every account and every co-conspirator. Financial transfers. Phone logs. GPS data. A final image, my children asleep, innocent and small, labeled as bargaining chips, and a leaked memo from Walsh's office. Then came the arrest. FBI agents stormed the stage mid-fundraiser. Walsh went down fighting, screaming about political sabotage and fabricated evidence. But the warrant was real. So were the 61 felony charges. Vanessa vanished before they got to her. Pearson stayed seated, smiling like a man who'd already paid off someone to clean this up. But not this time. The internet exploded. For weeks, my name trended alongside family conspiracy, political betrayal, and DA Walsh corruption scandal. The same hosts who'd trashed me now begged for interviews. I declined everyone. Instead, I focused on the trial prep and protecting Noah and Lily, who were relocated again, this time to a secured military base for dependents under federal emergency protocols. No press. No leaks. Delgado, now lead investigator on the case, worked with my attorney Lydia to schedule hearings, issue subpoenas, and secure full immunity for my involvement in exposing the conspiracy. Every motion we filed was airtight. Every deposition, devastating. Still, Pearson stayed calm. Until Pike tracked a signal from Lily's stuffed rabbit. That's when we knew Vanessa had breached the base perimeter. She'd embedded a GPS microchip in the toy, activated once she realized she'd lost everything else. She was trying to take the kids. Still, I got the alert during a federal deposition. I didn't wait. By the time I got to the safe zone, they already had her in custody. She was dressed like a civilian contractor and carrying forged clearance badges. Lily had never even seen her. Noah told the agents she doesn't live with us anymore. That night, I filed a motion to terminate Vanessa's parental rights permanently. The judge granted it on grounds of child endangerment, conspiracy, and psychological manipulation. She screamed in the courtroom, called me a thief, a liar, a traitor. I didn't say a word. I just looked at my kids. Lily squeezed my hand. Noah gave me a small, brave nod. Pearson tried to cut a deal. In exchange for partial immunity, he offered evidence tying 3 other senators to offshore rackets and judicial tampering. I told Delgado to take it, only if he let Vanessa testify and expand the charges against everyone she helped. They agreed. My enemies weren't just falling. They were erasing themselves from history. Vanessa's testimony was everything I expected. Charming, venomous, manipulative, and damning. She wore a cream blouse and pearls, like she was attending a brunch instead of testifying in federal court about how she plotted her husband's destruction. She wept at the right moments, claimed trauma and coercion, painted herself as a survivor of political pressure and parental control. But Delgado was ready. The prosecution shredded her timeline, exposed lie after lie, and played surveillance clips showing her not as a victim, but a tactician. Vanessa had been the fulcrum between Walsh and Pearson, the one who knew which switch to flip and when. And the jury saw it. By the end of her second day on the stand, it was clear Vanessa wasn't a bystander. She was the architect. Meanwhile, Senator Pearson's world collapsed. With Walsh jailed and Vanessa bleeding information daily, Pearson's allies began to flip. Staffers leaked memos. Secretaries turned over hard drives. Offshore transfers traced back to companies that hadn't existed before his votes on key legislation. Delgado's task force had everything they needed. I watched Pearson walk into federal court one last time. The man who once told me I wasn't worthy of his daughter's last name now looked like a shadow, clutching a legal pad and blinking under fluorescent lights. He took a plea deal. Life in exchange for testimonies that would trigger a congressional purge. He died in prison 8 months later. Walsh died 2 weeks before that, found hanging in his cell. No note. No closure. Just silence. And Vanessa? She cut a deal that gave her 20 years with the possibility of parole. Maximum security. No contact with the children. I didn't attend the sentencing. I had nothing left to say to her. The court finalized the parental termination shortly after. I was now sole legal guardian of Noah and Lily. The final barrier was gone. And still, it didn't feel like a win. It felt like the end of something that had once been beautiful, even if it was all a lie. I stood in the nursery Vanessa once painted by hand and realized we'd survived a war no one would ever fully understand. And all I had left to offer my kids was safety, not a family like we once knew, but something real, unbreakable. I took a job consulting for cybersecurity cases, nothing flashy, just work that let me stay close to the kids and far from the spotlight. I bought land outside Asheville and built a house with wide windows and locked gates. The world moved on. The media forgot. But I didn't. I taught Noah how to fish. I taught Lily how to ride a bike. One night, I found the stuffed rabbit, the one with the tracking chip. I thought about throwing it away. But Lily caught me. "Don't," she said, hugging it tight. He kept me safe. She didn't know the whole story. Maybe someday she would. But not yet. For now, we were safe. And that was enough. The years that followed weren't dramatic. There were no car chases, no courtroom explosions, no final betrayals. Just mornings where the sun came through the kitchen window, and two kids laughed over burnt pancakes. That was the real miracle, how normal life started to feel again. We lived quietly. I never remarried. Not because I didn't believe in love, but because I'd given everything I had to raising Noah and Lily. I didn't have space left for anyone else. Noah started painting, first landscapes, then portraits, then these wild abstract pieces that somehow always captured emotion better than words. Lily fell in love with architecture. She'd spend hours drawing tree houses, bridges, cities that looked like dreams stacked on top of reality. I let them grow, and I stayed close. We didn't talk about Vanessa, or Pearson, or any of it. I kept records for them, sealed in a locked cabinet with instructions to read when they were ready. Maybe at 18. Maybe never. That part wasn't mine to decide. Then one fall morning, I got a letter. It had no return address, just careful handwriting and a prison mail stamp. Vanessa. The letter was surprisingly short. No excuses. No bargaining. Just 5 pages of handwritten clarity. You were right to take them, she wrote. I destroyed everything because I didn't know how to be honest. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope Lily knows she was never a mistake. She ended it with a line I didn't expect. You were the only thing I ever believed in that scared me. Because you never broke. I didn't write back, but I did something else. I bought the old community center in the city where Thomas had once lived, the one he'd mentioned in his confession, where he used to sneak off to paint when Pearson wasn't watching. I rebuilt it as an art school and therapy center for kids caught in custody battles and family trauma. We called it the Thomas House. Noah helped design the logo. Lily helped with the layout. It wasn't about fixing what had happened. Nothing could, but it was about making something better grow from the ashes. On the 10th anniversary of the day we escaped, I took the kids back to the old cabin. It was abandoned now. The wood had gone soft. Vines clung to the roof. But the bones were still there, like a monument to the night everything ended and everything began. We stood outside for a long time. Lily took my hand. Was this where it started? No, I said quietly. This was where I realized I'd do anything to protect you. She didn't say anything else. She just leaned her head against my arm. Noah stood on the porch, painting the broken silhouette of the house against the sunset. I realized then, we were never really trying to win. We were trying to survive with our souls intact. And somehow we had.